we good? Okay. This is Ralph Amsden. This is the Fortcast on the 1012 Podcast Network. This is the first podcast of the year because anyone listening to this might identify with the fact that things were a little devastating in the early parts of 2025, given the abrupt end to Arizona State football's incredible 2024 season. Needed some time to recover, regroup, gather thoughts, and there's nobody that I'd rather be doing that with right now than Gus Farwell. Why should I have to? I shouldn't have to intro you.
Like I'm just, yeah, of course. Everyone knows who I am. Yeah, right.
You know what it is?
If you want.
It is very, very cool to be a Ralph hanging out with a Gus 75 years after that was common.
Right.
People in the soda shops in the 1950s carrying these names around. I feel like we're doing a lot of the heavy lifting for these 1940s, 1950s names. But no, I'm here with Gus Farwell, former Arizona State quarterback. If you're new to the Fortcast, welcome. Why are you here? I hope you stay. It'll be fun, I promise. And yeah, we cover Arizona State athletics here. And the whole point of this first episode of 2025 is to spend some time with Gus Farwell, who I hung out with in Atlanta for the Peach Bowl, and just kind of reminisce, regroup, recap on what it is we experienced.
A little therapy session that we're all going to need to kind of process.
A little bit of therapy, a little bit of gratitude. What an unbelievable opportunity for Arizona State as a university, for Arizona State football, and for the fans. And, you know, I don't think it's unique to the people who attended. I don't want anybody to feel left out. It was such a wonderful experience, and we'll get into that. But I remember, I mean, you're on the field in 96. I'm 12, you know, and it was formative for me. And I know that that's going to be the case for legions of future Sun Devil fans with podcasts in the year 2055, talking about this, you know, this Peach Bowl, this college football playoff being the tipping point for them becoming lifelong Sun Devils, you know, and maybe there's some, person who was born in 2013 hosting a podcast with DeCarlos Brooks or Trenton Bourget or something like that, you know. But I know that it was a very formative moment, no matter where people were, whether they were in Tempe, all over the country, all over the world, experiencing this. But man, was it cool to be part of it, and you were on the field.
It was insane. It was absolutely incredible. And, you know, I mean, and to your point with, you know, fans, I think we picked up a lot of fans nationally, just of this program, of the way we fought, of the grit, the comeback, and everything else. I think that a lot of people, we got a lot of sympathy from people. I got more text messages that day, I think, like, than any other day of my life. It was incredible. My phone was just blowing up. It was incredible. But yeah, to be lucky enough to be down on the field and to have all of that, and, you know, and to be there with, you know, my old roommate, good old, you know, Jake Plummer, and to be with him.
Who's that?
Yeah, who's that guy? And we had so much fun that day, just running around. We were like 15-year-old kids, just running around, like getting to the stadium, talking to people, you know, going to get a coffee in the morning, and Jake's taking pictures with a bunch of people, and just, it was just so much fun. You know, I'm popping off "Go Devils Go" wherever we were going, and trying to get everybody all riled up. And I got to get the video from him, because we were running kind of through the crowd in the stadium in the concourse, and I was just popping off "Go Devils Go" and just having them echo around, and just the response from everybody. And, you know, it was not an easy trip for me to do. I'd like to thank my wife here. because she agreed for me to go, and because I just kind of looked at her and I was just like, I gotta go, like I gotta go do this, And for those of you that don't know, I live in Barcelona, Spain, and so it was not a short trip to get there, but my goodness, it is in my top 5 trips of my entire life. I would not trade that experience for anything, and it was magical. I mean, win or lose, and like you said, there are going to be people talking about this game and this team for a very, very long time.
So, I want to reflect on something real quick, because you and I had an opportunity to hang out in person for the first time. Now we do these Sun Devil Spaces every Wednesday night for years. I don't know what made you jump on the first time, or how you ever found out about, what I was doing or anything like that. But I remember, when you first popped on, I was like, man, this is so cool. Like, this is somebody in the lore of, Arizona State Sun Devil football history that we know has a lot of passion for this. And it was just really, really special to have you jump on. And we've had so many people jump on, and it's just been kind of out of curiosity or a one-time thing. And then you're back the next week, and you're doing it from 5,000 miles away, or you're in the Pacific Northwest doing your
at 5:30 in the morning, sometimes, depending,
whispering in your house,
and sneaking around in the dark.
I mean, we had that in common, because that's at about 1:30 or midnight 30 my time, and I'm pacing around my living room trying not to wake my family up. But to have you come back time and time again, and the thing I love about Sun Devil Spaces is it's just a forum for people to kind of emote and do it in community, and have it be relatively uninterrupted. And it's very, I don't know, it feels very much just like a kickback every Wednesday night. And to have you come back again and again, it kind of felt like I was getting to know you a little bit. And then we had the opportunity to hang out on Thanksgiving in Tempe, spend a few hours together. And I was like, man, I left there feeling like, man, I think I've known this guy my whole life.
Yeah, and I was right back at you.
I appreciate that very much, but it's been very, very cool over the last year to get to know you a little bit better, and to root for this team who, holy hell, like, first of all, like, they were better than we thought, and then we got a little greedy, and then it just kept going, and for it to finish up in Atlanta in the Peach Bowl against Texas, there's not a single person I know who could have seen this coming, which makes this like the easiest thing in the world to be grateful for, because it wasn't, I don't know if there's ever going to be another time under Kenny Dillingham where there isn't expectations.
Right. 100%. I mean, I remember at one point in the season just really trying to contemplate us getting bowl eligible. Like, I remember being excited about the fact that we might get bowl eligible. And, and I remember doing a post after the Cincinnati loss and just going like, love this team, love this group of players, love these guys for sticking around. Like just, like I said, we got a little bit greedy, and when it started to seem like it was going well, and then everybody kind of got, I was let down, and now how is the rest of the season going to go? But I also remember on those spaces, you and I talking after the Utah game, which I was actually in Arizona at that time. So that was talking about it at a normal hour for me, the night before the game. And we both said, if we can beat Utah, this season could get really interesting. And right? Do you remember that?
Yes. Oh yeah.
And we just said, if we can beat Utah, this season could get really interesting. But for these guys to go out and do it, I mean, even in '96, I think we were ranked in the top 25 preseason, like barely, maybe like 23rd or 24th or something like that. So we were slightly on the radar. These guys were nowhere near. I mean, just written off for dead, left out, just floating in the ocean, kind of drifting off into the sunset. Nobody expects anything from Arizona State. And for these guys and the guys that stuck, stayed around and resisted the urge to leave and the transfer portal and everything else, and they stuck it out, and they just went, and they just wouldn't quit. They wouldn't back down. They didn't let anybody get in their face. And I just loved the way I saw early on, the way that, especially on defense, the way the defense would fly around and play. Like, these guys played hard. They would fly, and they liked to hit. They liked contact, and that's not always the case. And then you could see it on the sideline as well for a very long time. And this isn't to be critical of any other teams or whatever, but it just felt a little lacking energy wise for me. And what certainly from, when you've got Jake Plummer, Pat Tillman, Juan Roque and the likes, on your sideline, it's a noisy sideline. It's an energetic sideline. And so that's what I was used to. And then for a long time, I think it was just sort of like, it just felt down and quiet and whatever. And then all of a sudden I saw these guys and I'm like, okay, I see something there. And, but to say that I saw something where I thought that we would be where we are and what we've accomplished this year, what they've accomplished, there's no way I saw it coming.
Well, let's get further into the whole sideline thing, because what I was unaware of, and possibly you as well, being in the stadium, and I was credentialed for the game, but through the stuff I do for Rivals, I could have gone there, interviewed a bunch of kids who had Arizona ties, because I cover a lot of Arizona high school football, and I could have done that, but I'm like, I'm a Sun Devil, I'm an alum, my wife's an alum, she wants to go, so I had a credential, but I was like, yeah, I'd rather be in the stands. So my wife and I, we buy tickets. I think I walk up to the press box and say hi to two people. I'm there for maybe 8 seconds, and then I go back down, and I sit with my wife, and and I'm assuming that. And the crowd, I mean, there's just so many ASU fans. We'll get into that, but
yeah.
But things are kind of down in the first half, and what I'm not really aware of is that they're kind of scrapping on the sidelines a little bit, and people on television are seeing that. You're down on the sideline. I don't know if you felt that energy or whatever, but for people who were experiencing Arizona State for the first time, their reaction to it was like, look at this discord, like, this is what happens when you're unprepared. This is what happens when you play big boy football. This is what happens when you don't trust each other. And I'm like, I think they trust each other enough to get yelled at and to yell at each other.
Yeah. Which is a healthy part of any team, in my opinion.
Yeah. Right? I don't know if you saw that at all.
There was one specific point. I think it was a third down. It was an incomplete pass, and Levitt threw the ball to where he thought Cam should be. And my feeling from it, just watching it, is that Cam wasn't where he was supposed to be. And Levitt went over and just absolutely gave him an earful. And you know who that reminded me of? The guy standing next to me. Plummer is one of the most competitive human beings on the planet. He just seems so mellow now and everything else. And he is mellow now. But, back then he would rip guys. Like, if you made mistakes, like, accountability is a part of this. And that's what I like about, like Kenny doesn't shy away from accountability. He is all about it. And so for guys, especially when you want your leadership group, they call it the Pat Tillman leadership group, also a guy who, if you were making a mistake, would give you an earful. And so it's I think the society has changed so much, and not to get all like, ooh, society, but it's gotten to the point, right? Yeah. It's gotten to the point where it's sort of like, if you see guys yelling at each other on the sideline, it's sort of like, oh, well, maybe they just don't have that camaraderie. But I think it's the opposite. I think you have that trust and you have that brotherhood where it's, you're calling your buddy out, your brother out next to you, going like, dude, you got to do better. Like, we've got to do better. And so yeah, for people to see it on television and have that reaction doesn't bother me. It's fine, because you saw what they knew they weren't playing at the level they needed to play at to win that game. And when they came out in the second half, that's when you started to see it click.
You talked about the energy on the defensive side of the ball, like wanting to hit people, getting excited to even have an opportunity to be in pass coverage. I remember the Todd Graham days, super talented defensive backs left on an island.
Yep.
You start to get in your own head of like, is it coming my way? Because it's all on me. But the players on this team, your Keith Abney's, Miles Rouser, Shamari Simmons, like they want an opportunity. And I remember in March, I flew in with George Reister. We had a sit down with Marcus Arroyo, with Brian Ward, and with Kenny Dillingham. We recorded all these interviews. And Brian Ward, he's a guy who's from Arizona. He's part of that kind of North Dakota State coaching tree, like answers-based, defense that is all the rage in college football right now. And I'm listening to him talk, and he's the most soft-spoken guy in the world. Like the contrast of Brian Ward and Marcus Arroyo, who are very soft-spoken isn't the right word. It's measured, just very contained.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like there's a lot of connotations with the word soft, but I don't know what other word to use in comparison to Kenny Dillingham, who has old man voice at 34. From just
I gotta work with Kenny from a vocal perspective. I can be a voice coach for him, and we can work on the vocal cords.
Hey, yeah, don't act like you didn't lose your voice.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't speak for like 3 days after New Year's Day, but yeah, it was awful.
But for Ward is he's so contained. But I just remember him saying, like, if you come to Arizona State, you're going to know what your job is. He's like, that's really what sets us apart is if you're out on the field, you will know. You'll know what the expectation is of you. It's not going to change mid-snap. It's not going to change mid-game. You're just going to know. And when you know, then you're going to have the confidence to do your job and to do it well. And you see the energy of this defense and the ferocity of this defense and the fact that, like, Brian Ward isn't one of these guys who's just out here screaming in your ear. He's just making sure you know what your job is so you can be confident and be yourself. And I love that because I'm so used to, especially guys on the defensive side of the ball, just wearing their heart on their sleeve.
Yeah.
He just did such a fantastic job this year. He enabled all that.
It's incredible. I mean, first of all, I get totally what you mean as far as sort of his demeanor. Like if you walk into a room full of coaches or just football people, like you're like, that guy's not a coach. Like, I don't know what he's doing, but he's just kind of here hanging out. Like maybe he's a reporter or something like that. Like he's so mellow. But it's exactly, it's the way that he coaches and we had a list of things in 96 that was kind of our mottos that we had. And number one was, I will know what to do.
Okay.
And so I will know what to do. And when any great defenses are set up to basically take away certain parts of the field, right? Like everybody has a responsibility. Everybody has their keys. Everybody has their gaps, their responsibilities. What you try to do as an offense, you try to get people to make mistakes. You try to get people to get overly hungry, to try to bite on something. So, to vacate a space because you think you see something that's going on and you're like, oh, I'm going to make a play. I'm going to be the star and I'm going to get this tackle for loss or the sack. But then the next thing you know, the ball's just over your head and, the guy's running downfield with nobody in front of him. So I think that's what Brian Ward does so well is he just coaches a defense. It's a disciplined defense. And they play as a unit. They go to the ball, they swarm the ball. They don't give up a lot of big plays. We won't talk about the first Texas, first couple of plays for Texas. But I mean, other than that, I mean, they didn't really give up anything big all game. And they are just a great unit and they play and they blitz and you don't know where it's coming from, but they cover each other. And it's it's fun to watch. It's just fun to watch. I just like the energy level that they have, which is so funny because it's so sort of to the opposite of Brian Ward, that calm demeanor on the sideline. That he has this ferocious defense that just flies around. So it's an interesting dynamic. But I also think that Marcus Arroyo and Brian Ward allow Kenny to be Kenny. I think that's one of the other cool things about their relationship is Kenny is such a vortex of energy that I just don't even know where he gets it all from. And just what an amazing coach and an amazing mind, but he just has this seemingly limitless energy. But so I think it's great to have these kind of calm heads or seemingly calm heads in Arroyo and Ward standing on either shoulder.
Yeah. And I just, I think about when Herm Edwards was brought in, and there was just this kind of giant sigh of relief from the players who stuck around, saying that, like, hey, we've been jammed, whether we fit or not, into a box the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And, things weren't going well. And I think when things aren't going well, that's when you start to kind of look for reasons why. And one of the reasons why, from the players' side, that they felt they identified, and sometimes players are too close to the situation. Sometimes there's too much self-interest. Sometimes it's just the brain in your youth. That maybe it's not realistic things that you're grasping onto as reasons for why you weren't succeeding. But I remember at the time, a lot of the players, when Herm came in, there was just this huge weight off their shoulders because Herm came in and he's like, be who you are.
Yeah.
Now, about 12 months into that, Herm and the rest of the coaching staff were like, whoa, some of you are too much. Like, we got to scale it back. We got to get more discipline because the pendulum just swung so far in the opposite direction. It's interesting to have Kenny Dillingham there now because he is very much somebody who wants you to be yourself so long as it's in pursuit of a common goal.
Right.
So
100%.
The individual doesn't get lost in the mission. Whereas Arizona State went like fully mission focused into fully individual focused, and now they seem to kind of marry the two things. But I did find it very interesting, Kenny Dillingham talking after the game, why am I going to get mad at Cam Scatteraboo or even before the game, why am I going to get mad at Sam Levitt or Cam Scatteraboo for believing in themselves when that's what got us here? As long as they're doing their job.
People freak out about the weirdest stuff, I swear. But I mean, to your Herm point, it's interesting because I was talking with somebody, and this was like a couple years back, and I thought it was the best that I had heard it explained is that Herm came from, I mean, they were supposed to bring in the pro model, right? It was the pro model, but he came from the professional world. And this person had played in the league. And he said, look, he goes, when you get to the league, you're basically formed, right? You've spent all these years in college. You know how to work. You know how to look after yourself. You're responsible. I mean, more or less. But you're kind of the finished article, and you just, of course you got to keep working, but you're kind of disciplined. You're quote unquote, whatever a man is, but you're supposed to be like fully grown and kind of like, a professional, right? Well, you take that and so you can leave these guys alone, and kind of let them do their thing. And then you just coach them when you need to coach them. Well, you can take that model and try to do it with 18 to 22-year-olds. They're 23-year-olds, or now 27-year-olds, with how long guys are staying around. But you just can't do that. You can't just say, and I think they found that out, like you said, within about a year, they found that out pretty quick. Like you can't, like, you can be yourself. But I love that about Kenny and his sort of, I mean, we were in '96, we were total motley crew of personalities. Like, we were just so many different guys from so many different backgrounds, and we just found a way to come together. And that's what was special. And I mean, how do you do that? I don't know. Because if I did know, I'd be paid a lot of money to replicate that. But what Kenny is doing is Kenny's found a way to get these guys to connect, to believe in the same goal, to work towards it. And, not to get it too far ahead of ourselves, but I'm really interested about where this is going as far as next year is concerned, because people talk about this team and like the comparisons to the 96 team. People forget that in 95, we lost that game to U of them, at home, to cost us a bowl game. And we had a really bad taste in our mouth and a chip on our shoulder, which is what led to all of us having a meeting shortly after that game, and everybody committed to stay all summer and everything else. And that's what led to the 96 season. So, maybe we'll get to that later, but I'm really interested to see where this goes as far as, because these guys, I mean, Sam Levitt's going to be, that's his last pass of the year, right? Like he's going to be thinking about that the entire offseason, and he's going to come back ready to play.
And so the whole like kind of needing to get your teeth kicked in, because you got to learn how to get up, right?
Yeah,
you have to. And losses are lessons, losses are opportunities. I believe all of that, like full heart, body, mind, soul. Like I try to live that with conviction, but it also, it's like the old like Mortal Kombat video game. Yeah, it's one thing to get knocked down, but you don't want to get knocked off the platform into the pit of death. There's no getting up from that. So you don't want things to get so bad that there's no way to come back from it. And that's what's tough about football, is it's in these like individual chapters. People can get fired. Entire rosters can get turned over. But for Kenny Dillingham to come in, they go 3-9. But the truth about that season, and the reason that I was so tickled that Arizona State got picked last, and knew it was just going to be the gift that kept on giving. I think I even tweeted, like, if ASU is last in the Big 12, I will spend all of January camping in my own backyard. I'm glad I didn't have to do that, because it's been like 20 degrees every day. But like I was so entertained by that, because the truth of the matter was Arizona State was about 15 points away from being 6-6.
Yeah.
And to be honest, probably should have been able to find a way to hold that lead against Oklahoma State. You do that, you're 7-5. You get a bowl, you win. Like there was a path to 8 wins in a 3-9 season where they got blown out a bunch. And so I looked at it and I was like, hey, it's just a matter of figuring out what to do in these instances where you lost a game to Colorado, where you were close, but weren't able to get it done. And the personnel is going to be greatly upgraded. The coaches are going to know what they're doing. And the margins in the Big 12 especially are so thin. I look at a team like Kansas this year. Kansas went 5-7. They also had the hottest month of anybody in the country.
Absolutely.
But if you really look at it, Kansas this year was 24 points away from being 10-2 and the Big 12 representative in the Big 12 championship game. 24 points away from being 10-2, and they didn't make a bowl. And so that's what's at risk for Arizona State next year, is staying in a position where in the Big 12, you really do live in the margins. There's not too many teams that are greatly more talented than others, even though ASU is kind of in a unique position to have access to both California and Texas in the way that they recruit. So there's some talent advantages there, but you do have to be able to win these close games. That's how TCU got to the college football playoff. That's how Arizona State did it. And there is a lot of risk. There's a lot of risk going into the 2025 season. The people, I think, maybe just assume that this is going to be what it is now. And so to see Kenny Dillingham like posting on social media that he's on a plane trying to figure out how to solve complacency, the disease that affects us all, right? Like, because he knows how dangerous this conference truly is, how thin those margins are.
Yeah, next year we have to go. I think we have to go to Baylor. We have to go to Colorado. We have to go to Utah. All 3 of those are not easy games.
Right.
Like I mean, you know what I mean? If we win those games by a total of 9 points, I won't be surprised. You know, I mean, who knows what happens with Colorado with Dion and everything else that's going on there, but yeah, and it is, and it's look, I know everybody is sort of upset about the loss and especially the circumstances that are around it, and I'm sure we'll get into that because I got a lot to say about that.
Yeah, I'm excited. We'll make that the next thing.
But yeah, I mean it is, and it's sort of, but I think it's losses like that kick your team on, right? It's not like it's just that this is the end or this is, you know, oh, we can just go take some time off now. It's like no, right? And I think Kenny posted something like, or even maybe it was Graham Rossini, and he just said, you know, it's great to be back and everything else. Like, let's get back to work. And that's exactly what it is, because now it's time to build. It's time to use momentum, not to relax, not to kind of like, oh, wasn't that a great season? And let's just look backwards. It's like, no. We gotta get ready. Like the next season starts now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's and now they have a choice, right? You grew up in the era where that choice didn't exist. I mean, most of us, you know, the rules were designed. I don't think it was flawed thinking in the way that they designed eligibility rules and having to sit out and everything like that.
I like that rule.
I'm not even thinking about the revenue piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just thinking about the fact that, hey, if they really are student athletes, and from an academic perspective, from an institutional perspective, you are treating them like student athletes. Never mind the NCAA, who's just sitting back raking in cash. You know, from the actual institution standpoint, we got to acclimate these students. We got to make sure they're right for the culture. You know, it never bothered me the sort of like cooling off period, but you get to the point where coaches have a choice. So they want instant benefit, so that, you know, they don't love that you have to sit out. They're pushing people out the door who can't help them right away. It was inevitable that it was going to move to this, but it really did used to be that, you know, for the longest time, that if you were going to transfer to a school, you had to be so sure, because it was going to be 12 months before you even had the opportunity to start thinking about seeing the field. So, you know, in this circumstance, when everyone has a choice every single year, to see this many people choose Arizona State again, and for the coaching staff to be open to it, to having everybody run it back, it's very, very unique, not to the history of college football. You're used to bringing everybody back, but in this day and age, especially when ASU just turned their roster over 2 years in a row, in this day and age, to have people say, and especially after we watch Ricky Pearsall, Jaden Daniels, Eric Gentry, all these people say, like, man, I would love to stay, but it's not the best opportunity for me. To watch people choose Arizona State has just been like so soothing. It
really is, because last year it just felt like everyone. Yeah, like last year it just felt like everybody was just. It was like, okay, there goes everyone. Like, you know, or the year before that, I can't. You know, it was just sort of, well, what can you do? You can't blame them. Like, go and find your way. And then especially after Jaden Daniels, you know, goes to LSU, and then it was like, and I was like, oh, I don't know if that's going to work. Well, that obviously did work. And then, so, you know, you see him win the Heisman and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, oh, great. We're just going to be a stepping stone school. And is that just what we're going to be now? You know? And I know that it's been looked at as that for coaching as well. You know, like, go coach at ASU and you're going to end up somewhere, you know. We've got, I mean, how many head coaches around the Power Four now, you know, have ASU on their resume? Like, there's a lot.
Sacramento State, Oregon, Florida State, Florida, right? Memphis, like that. Tons of them. Yes.
So to see them stay. And I mean, it reminds me of I keep getting pulled to, and not to go to a competitor in our own league, but I have such respect for what Utah did, especially in the Pac-12 when they joined, and what Kyle Whittingham did there or Whittingham, or I don't know. People always give me a bad time how I say his name. I don't know, but you know what I mean.
And now it's Whittingham.
I'm married. Yeah, I'm married to a British woman. I'm sorry, it just kind of happens. Whittingham, whatever. And I guess it's Dillingham, so we'll call him Whittingham. But yeah, so what Utah did and what he was able to do, and so much of it was retained his coaching staff, right? Like what and his players, and it wasn't a place where people left a lot. It was just a place where people would come into, and they would be willing to work, they were willing to compete and willing to develop over years and not expect everything now. Yeah. Right. And so and Stanford was similar, but Stanford's its own beast because everybody just doesn't want to leave and they want the degree from Stanford, right?
Yeah.
So but so if we can create that, and it's already happening. I mean, it's amazing to think. I mean, just 12 months ago, even 5 months ago, to think that we'd be in this position where 16, 17 returning starters, no one's transferring out. We've got really good players coming in. It's mind blowing what Kenny and his staff have done, and they're doing it in the right way. They're all about competition. They're all about, I just love just all the little things. I was lucky enough to be invited into their staff meeting one morning to do a Go Devils Go for them, because they do it at the end of every staff meeting. But just to watch how they operate and the feeling of camaraderie in the room, and it's not forced camaraderie. You can tell these guys just all really like each other. But the efficiency with which they operate, and I think that starts with Kenny and then goes down. It was, I was like, whoa, like the meeting probably wasn't but 15-20 minutes, but I walked out of there just going like, holy cow, things have changed since 96.
Yeah.
The attention to detail, the data analysis, the data points and everything else. It was impressive, really, really impressive. So am I completely surprised that we are where we are? Maybe that we're here so early, but I'm not surprised at all that we are going to have success under this coaching staff.
Well, let's talk about this slogan, the Arizona State football slogan, because the English teacher in me, it's tough. It's tough. Have more fun working harder than anybody in the country.
I thought you were going to say abandon all hope, ye who enter here.
Okay, so I'm glad they brought that back. Right. However, when things aren't going well, it feels like it's directed inward. So I always struggled. It'd be like 49-7 Oregon. Yeah,
we're talking to our own fan base here.
Yeah, and I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah, or last year, it wasn't up last year for the U of A game, but had it been, I would have been staring at it like, yeah, that's probably true.
It's gone.
But no, to have more fun working harder than anybody in the country. That is like I wouldn't even know how to rearrange that sentence if my student gave me. But it does kind of encompass what they're about. He loves the idea that compete. He brought a basketball hoop in, brought a chessboard in. Fostering competition in everything you do. Like, we're both walking to class together. Like, who can get to the door first? Like, in everything you do, bringing the spirit of competition into it.
We used to we were that way. I mean, we would compete in everything. Like Jake and I, like living in our house, we'd have vicious games of like tape ball inside the living room with a broken broom bat and a rolled up ball of duct tape. We used to have decathlons we used to have long jumps. We would put the hose across the pool and we would try to see who could clear the hose. And of course I would lose every time. And I remember Isaiah Mustafa, which would just kill us all, but Old Spice guy. And we were super, and our game of choice that ruled all to decide all was Yahtzee. We would have
great underrated game.
we would have amazing games of Yahtzee, and it was like we were so competitive. And again, that stuff just comes out. It's if you live like that and you want to compete, and Kenny knows this. I don't know where he learned it from or where he got it from, but it's just it. You get it. It's like, it's first to the gate. It's who calls shotgun first, who can. It's all these little things that you just constantly compete against. And then when when the world is watching, when the nation is watching, and you're down to two scores with two-point conversions needed, you don't flinch. And that's what we saw, and it's just incredible, the culture. Everybody talks about culture. You hear it all the time in the media. I hear my pundit friends and everything. Everybody talks about, well, when a new coach goes in, you got to create a new culture and everything else. And it's a really easy buzzword to say, but it's really difficult to understand what that is and to create it. What it means to a group, how to get a group together, how to get everybody on the same page. It's when you're in those walls and you're in those meeting rooms and everything else, and you don't see how compartmentalized it all is as well, like with the tight end room and the running back room, and then you've got the offensive linemen watching their own video and video tape, whatever we want to call it now, whatever they say. Film, as we used to call it. But it's hard to get everybody together. And then you've got your offense, you got your defense. We used to have fights during practice all the time. Offense and defensive guys would get into fights. We used to have our rumbles back in the day in the locker room, where if two guys were just going at it a little too much, we would surround them and they would have to wrestle each other to the ground, and whoever got the guy. Yeah, it was kind of like this weird tribal system, right? And it was like, okay, you could wrestle each other to the ground, but as soon as somebody hit the ground, it was done. It was over. The team would surround them. They'd have to hug it out, and okay, we're brothers again. Forget all that. It's done. That's out, and that's how we dealt with it. And it was just weird. I don't know, I don't know if any other teams do that or did that or whatever. I just know that we did, and but we were at each other.
What are you going to do? Let it fester?
Yeah, no, exactly. So it was a great way. It was actually a really clever way to deal with it. I don't know where it ever came from, but again, that competition, that fierce rivalry thing, our offense and defense went at each other. And that's when you get a really good team. When you have a really good defense playing against offense, we do first team versus first team. It should be chippy. It should be, they've got rules about it, like what you can do now. And, you don't want guys getting hurt, obviously, but you want it to be competitive. And that's when you get good teams.
And there was some mid 2010s teams. I got to know a few of the players really, really well who were, locals that I covered that went on to be part of those teams, and they didn't like each other at all. And it wasn't like they would get after each other in practice, but it did not come from a place of like trying to reach a common goal or self-betterment.
They just didn't like each other. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would ask about like, hey, an offensive lineman, how's this defensive lineman doing in practice? And be like, I don't care. Like, there just wasn't there wasn't a I don't know. I look at this way.
Foreign to me. That's completely foreign. Like we cared so much, and we still do. We still care about each other. We still talk about each other. But whatever. Not to talk about '96. But you can tell these guys like each other.
I think it's good to bring up '96, because here's the thing about culture: is it's not so much what you do to build a culture. It's that there's 3 or 4 things that you can't afford not to do. It's like sourdough bread or anything like that. Everybody can do their own little thing to add their signature to baking this bread. But there's like 3 or 4 things that if you don't do, you're not getting bread.
Right.
Right. So like there are these tent poles and competition, common goal, team before self. There's all of these things that just have to be there. And you look at '96, Kenny Dillingham greatly affected by '96, Charlie Regal greatly affected by '96. Before either of those guys were in any position of power at Arizona State, I'm having conversations with Charlie Regal while he's at Cal, while he's at Cal, he's like, man, all I do is think about ways to make this place better.
Yeah.
You work somewhere else. He's like, it's all I've ever thought about. It's all
So
I've ever
interesting.
thought about. He's like, when I was in college, I'm writing papers on how to make ASU what it is like right now as you and I are sitting here talking about it.
Yeah.
Kenny Dillingham would come and sit in spaces and just listen. And then after it's over, he messaged me like, pretty cool. Like, you know, like, and he's in there listening to people who are just longing for Arizona State to be what we think maybe it could be someday. Well, and he's doing that while he's at Florida State, while he's at Oregon. And that's why, you know, it very much is that kind of like Wolf on Wall Street, one of us chant when it comes to guys like, well, like Regal, like Dillingham, like Brian Ward, that, you know, if it doesn't work with these guys in charge, and it is working, but it might not work because it, you know, you have people who are actually passionate about the process in charge right now. So like the whole bringing up 96 thing, it's important. It's more important than anything else to say, here are the times when it worked. What did we do then?
What did we do? I know. Well, I had a great conversation with a coach of in the athletic department at New Year's, and it was expressed to me just how wonderful and how different it feels having Sun Devils in high positions. Right? Having Graham, having a Sun Devil athletic director. And again, we've had some good athletic directors who weren't Sun Devils, but it's like to now, I think we just need it now. It was especially after everything that we went through over the last, you know, few years and things, and we don't need to go into all that, but to have a Sun Devil athletic director, to have a Sun Devil football coach who just gets it, who loves this place, who doesn't want to be anywhere else. And it just sets a tone. It sets a tone and the culture and everything else. And yeah, and maybe it is good to look back to that 96 team sometimes and, you know, talk about it and whatnot. And you see the characters, you know, guys like, you know, obviously guys like Pat Tillman just don't, you know, come along all the time. But there were so many other people on that team, you know, it's a lot of talk about Jake. It's a lot of talk about Pat, but I mean, you got guys like Juan Roque, Kyle Murphy, Doc Robertson, Keith Poole, Terry Battle, who I got to see when I was out in Atlanta and like got to meet his son. And it's just, it's so great when we get to see each other and we all still love each other. I mean, we are brothers for life. And it was great what we did on the field, but what we have off the field is even more special, you know, and that's what we want for these guys more than anything. I mean, for a very long time, it was kind of like, okay, let's bring the 96 team, you know, it's another 5 years that we're going to celebrate the 96 team again. It's like, man, all we really want is another team to come along that we can celebrate. Right.
Yeah.
We're going to see a lot of number 4 jerseys
oh my gosh,
for very long, which I'm stoked about.
Forever.
I think that's freaking great. And he's deserving of that. You know, it's like,
I'm like, hey, that 4 jersey, like, yeah, that's 90% Scattaboo. But I'm like, I'm seeing 5% Demario Richard, 5% Miles Rouser. Like it makes me think of all these, you know, great number 4s or whatever. But so here's the thing I want to bring, and this is I'm interested in your take on this because Dr. Crow, or as when I ran into him in March, hey, Mike.
No. I lost you for a sec.
Did I lose you for a second?
Yeah, I got you back now.
Okay, I can edit this. But so I literally run into Dr. Crow and I'm like, oh, hey, Mike. And, you know, a little bit of a surprise there. But so one of the things that's very interesting about, you know, him and his vision for Arizona State is brings in a lot of, you know, consultants, bigwigs, Stanford educated people, Harvard educated people. And it was all to get Arizona State to a point where people looked at ASU a certain way. I don't think it's as simple as just wanting to get away from like the Playboy article party reputation. I think he actually, I do very much believe he had a vision for what he wanted Arizona State to be, how he wanted to be looked at, the Barrett Honors College, everything else, that to get to a point where you have people with Arizona State education and Arizona State ties running Arizona State is an enormous point of pride for him. Because I think there was the thought that he would never come around to that. But now you have Graham Rossini, Marcus Williams, Kenny Dillingham, Charlie Ray. You have all of these people with Arizona State affiliations helping make Arizona State athletics great, right? And that's a 30-year build.
Yeah.
It really is. So I know the easiest thing in the world is to take shots at somebody who's in charge of a thing, especially when that thing had a lot of times where it wasn't going well. And he's taken those shots and he's taken his share of the blame. And I'm not here trying to suck up to him. I'm just trying to say that, like, from an internal perspective, it's very good to have Sun Devils in charge. From an external perspective, which matters a lot to guys like Dr. Crow, it's acceptable now.
Yeah.
Because of like Arizona State University produced Graham Rossini.
Yeah.
Arizona State, this is going to trigger some ASU fans, but Arizona State University produced Alabama's athletic director, Greg Byrne. Right? Like, to get to that point, I think that there's some, I'm taking some pride in that Dr. Crow is cool now with having people represent this university who came from this university, which I think was really his ultimate goal.
Yeah, and I think, and like you said, and I understand those choices of trying to kind of, one of the sort of business, mindsets is you don't want to be the smartest person in the room, right? You want to surround yourself with people smarter than you, or not, if not smarter than just extremely capable. And you take that sort of business model to it, and you see what you can do. And there's certainly, I'm sure there's a lot of things that people contributed from those. There's a lot that was contributed from those people that he worked with, and then, but to now get to the point where, and maybe it was because things just got so dire that it was like, okay, now is the time. If nothing else, we just need to feel like this is home again, right? We need that comfort feeling of having people that we know, the faces that we know, and let's make no mistake, hiring Kenny was probably it seems like a no-brainer now. You hired the youngest college football coach in the country, right? No one questions his football mind and everything else, but this is a first-time head coach. You are handing Arizona State over to a guy that clearly loves the program, but it was probably a risk from their standpoint. I'm sure that if you had a think tank sort of analyze the situation, they probably give him that, like, I don't know, like 6.5, 7 out of 10. This isn't like a slam dunk hire. I remember a lot of people talking about whether or not Arizona State, when I was working for the Pac-12 network, a lot of people in the press box coming up to me going like, hey, what do you think about Deion Sanders at Arizona State? Right? Most people forget that was potentially a thing. Yeah. And I was getting questions all over the place. And then all of a sudden, we get Kenny. And I think the fans need to take credit hugely for, it was amazing how many people were saying, Kenny Dillingham, go get the offensive coordinator at Oregon, Kenny Dillingham. And the fans should take credit, because there were a lot of people crying out for it. And so, but, to credit to Dr. Crow and getting Graham Rossini and getting Kenny Dillingham in and getting that feel good factor back. And not only it's not just feel good, it's incredible minds with incredible operational capacity to do the right thing and to get this program where it needs to be. And we're seeing that. And it's a really special thing. And to hear it from inside the athletic department, from other coaches and other sports, is really, really cool. And it's like when Kenny did his the famous his first press conference, and he's getting emotional and saying, I'm home, and tears are kind of coming down his cheeks. And my producer at the Pac-12 network, he called me up and he said, man, Arizona State finally hired someone who loves ASU as much as you do.
That's true. I mean, that's true. I just, you think about the spectrum, because like Kenny Dillingham's hired not that long after Lori Loughlin goes to jail for trying to keep her daughter out of ASU. Like Lori Loughlin from Full House, right? Like, it's just the dichotomy of like, I am willing to risk prison to keep my kid out of ASU,
right?
To a man publicly crying that he has the opportunity to be at ASU. It's just that's like going from the hot tub into the cold pool. Like, it's just such a wide gap that there is this, that you really, it makes you realize that like, you don't really know ASU unless you've been to ASU. And I was talking to Zach Schwartz, who does some incredible content. And I was telling him, I'm like, hey, ASU, like basketball, football, ASU is starting to feel like ASU. Like the sports are starting to feel like what it is like to go to school here. And I was somebody who went to ASU. I supported ASU always, but I didn't start at Arizona State till I was 25. I was married. I had 2 kids. I didn't have your traditional Arizona State experience. I did as much as I could to get as many credits done as possible to catch up to everybody else. Graduated in like 2.5 years, right? It was a blur, but not for the same reasons other people's ASU experience has been a blur.
Yeah, I was going to say your liver is in much better condition than most of ours.
It's in great shape. However, every single day there was just like, man, I am in paradise.
Yeah.
And the education was incredible. The people were awesome. Like everybody is in a good mood, a chill mood. There is something for everyone there, for their leisure, for their education, for their social life. And now, just like every restaurant in the world, every hotel, like now Tempe is becoming sort of like one of the hallmark cornerstone cities of Arizona, even outside of the university existing there. And so it's such a cool place. And it's, we talk about, people transferring in and out of Arizona State. Is Arizona State a stepping stone school? You brought that up.
Yeah.
And it can be, and it certainly should be for your life. It's,
right.
But is it the school you go to then get an opportunity at a better school? I don't think so. I think Arizona State should really be branded as the best second decision you ever make in your life, because you go to university, you find out what college is all about, you recalibrate your priorities, and then you say, where can I actually get what I need? And how could that answer not be Arizona State University? People say like, acceptance rates, like it's a bad thing. They welcome everybody. They've got something for everyone. The high-end education, sciences, bringing in a medical school, like they have whatever it is you want. And to watch Kenny Dillingham pitch this as paradise, as there's no better place to be in the country, and that's how most people that went to ASU left feeling that way.
Yeah. I mean, a couple of years ago, I did my concert at Gamage, and I had a bunch of people who really hadn't spent any time in Tempe coming to town to go to the concert. And then
for people that don't know, Gus Farwell plays the theremin, and he's very popular.
So, there was a game the next day. I think it was a UCLA game, and so I had all these people. A lot of them were from Los Angeles, because that's where I lived before I moved to Spain. But they came out and they were just blown away. First of all, at the ease of getting to the stadium. I mean, people don't truly understand that. I mean, like parents of student athletes who want to come to Arizona State, if you don't live in the Valley, especially for football. Getting to the stadium from the airport is like the easiest thing on the planet. it's you just pop in an Uber, you're there in like 15 minutes. This does not exist. Try getting to Autzen Stadium in 15 minutes from an airport. And so you have that aspect. Then you have the downtown Tempe aspect and all of the surrounding areas of Scottsdale and everything else. And then yeah, it's everything there. And then they were just blown away by the game day experience, just being able to come in and so it's basically to be able to come in and walk into that stadium and have all of those restaurants and everything else around and just be able to go in. And I know people are going to go on about the, I get it, the tailgating and whatnot. But we've got a athletic department that is listening to people about this kind of, these kind of things, and things will continue to improve and everything else. But we're pretty spoiled, I think, in certain ways. And I know people have certain issues with certain things, and I get that and I hear that. But really, in the overall scheme of things, our game day experience is incredible, right? Especially when we're winning. That stadium, yeah. Mount America Stadium, when it's full and it's rocking, it's really a unique place in the college football, landscape. And I don't know many places like it. And Jake and I were talking about this when we were out there in Atlanta. It is the single greatest playing surface in the nation. And it's Jake even says, like, you can play with barefoot on that field. It's so good.
I bet he would. I bet he
would. He would for sure.
Okay, so speaking of game day experience, let's close out spending some time on this, because that's probably what people came here for, and we ended up reminiscing as we will do. But
yeah,
we're in Atlanta.
Yeah,
you got to, and I can't even believe that it took me a while. Like, you told me about this, and then it took me a while to even process it. Jake Plummer is in the College Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But he had not been to the College Football Hall of Fame to see his display there. And you were there with him when he got to see that.
Yeah.
That's wild. What was that like?
It was super cool. It was, to go there, and they had a special display out for the Peach Bowls and the college football playoff. First of all, I had never been to the College Football Hall of Fame, and I didn't really even know that. I mean, I knew that there was a College Football Hall of Fame. I didn't know that it was in Atlanta. I didn't know that they had this beautiful building and this great place that you could go and everything else. So to go there with him and to watch him sort of walk up and be able to see that display, and they had a Pat Tillman jersey out as well, which hit hard, and it was really special, really cool. It happened to be on the night that they were what's the word, that they were basically indicting? No, they were basically just they were putting in the new class of 2025
Oh, okay.
And they were all there having
inducting.
What's that? Inducting. Thank you. Not indicting. Indictment. A College Football Hall of Fame indictment is something altogether different. That's what they were going to give me for being there. Like, why are you even here? So
you Gus have the right to remain silent.
Exactly. Why are you even here? Get out of here. But the next thing they invite us into the dinner, and we're not dressed like to go to. Everybody else is in suits. They're getting their jackets. They're getting everything else. And the next thing I know, I'm sitting at this table and I mean, there's just legends there. Toby Gerhardt, like, work done. It was just Randy Moss wasn't there, but he was getting inducted, and so it was incredible. And I'm like, okay, what am I doing here? I'm just sitting in the College Football Hall of Fame having dinner with all of these amazing people. And so, but back to Jake, he will be the first person to say he is there because of the team, because of his offensive line, his receivers, his tight ends. You know, I just see names flashing in front of my, in my mind. The defense, the incredible defense that probably, in my opinion, one of the greatest defensive efforts in the history of college football, in that Nebraska game and everything else. And Jake will be the first to say that he gets a lot of credit. I mean, obviously he's an amazing football player and was an amazing football player and what he did in the pros and everything else, but he's the first one. And when he was given, the plaque or the frame with his college football Hall of Fame sort of, I don't know, certificate, whatever they call it, on the field, he really wanted the 96 team with him on that field, because he's like, this is for all of us. This isn't just me. And people forget that Jake did not have the greatest first 3 seasons. Obviously was an amazing quarterback, but if you look at team record and what they did, it wasn't great. And then thankfully his senior year, the sort of stars aligned. And, I've heard him say before, I don't know if I get that opportunity to have that senior year after the first 3 years that I had. Would he have been in the transfer portal, like in modern days, kind of like a Bo Nix kind of thing?
Yeah.
And, obviously there's an amazing quarterback there, but does that mean that he would have been given that fourth starting year to do what he did? So it was really special.
The answer is a resounding no, because you know who's not getting that fourth year? Quinn freaking Ewers.
Which is it is incredible, right?
Carson Beck.
I'm like, you're the starting quarterback at Georgia and you transfer? You're the starting quarterback at Texas and you transfer. There's so much about modern day.
You have better numbers than Matt Stafford and Colt McCoy, and you went to back-to-back college football playoffs, and your own fan base is done with you.
Want you out. And they want a completely unproven, what? He'll be a redshirt sophomore, Arch Manning, I think.
Yes. No, yeah, he'll be a redshirt sophomore. People who don't, I do not envy people who do not have roots in the college football, like days of old. If this is just what you have and your expectations of it, there's something missing. And so, like, I'm grateful every single day to have it's not coming back around. I'm not going to spend my time saying I wish it would.
Right. Yeah. Waste of time.
But I can confidently say, like, no. The idea of Jake Plummer rolling out there for his fourth shot at bringing Arizona State to prominence, that doesn't happen in 2024.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, it really doesn't. And that's not lost on him either. Like, he gets that. And I think that's why he feels, for multiple reasons, but he feels such allegiance to the schools, because it did give him that opportunity. It stuck with him and gave him the opportunity, that last opportunity, to go and do what he did. And then what I say we, but really, I was just sitting on the sideline, but it was what we all did. And it was a really special thing to do. And it's why he was such a great leader to begin with, is because it's not about Jake. It's about what the team did. He was never about, he didn't care about his stats. I've never heard Jake ever talk about his stats, ever, not once. And really what it was about is what the team did. And he realizes that that's what got him there. And that's why, and that's actually why it's so special to him, because it's not just about him. It's about everybody.
Yeah, and he also played 10 straight years of home games on the same field, which is insane. But so I want to get into one more thing that it was something that you told me the day after the game that it's still rattling around in my brain right now. But you're next to Jake when Sam Leavitt takes off on 3rd and 13.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna let you take it from there.
So Jake, we were there, and Sam does that incredible run, and Jake just sort of pumps his fist, and he is riled up, right? Like Jake doesn't get that way during games usually when he's watching football games. But he was right in the moment. I felt like he was like almost psychologically connected to Sam Levitt. And I kind of put my hands on his shoulders and he's like down in a crouch and he just looks up over his shoulder at me and he goes, they're going to put that right next to my run and like he knew in that instant, he saw it, like he was almost like he was watching himself. And he knew that those runs were so similar and he knew it instantly. Like he didn't watch it back on tape later or like, watch the highlights and go like, oh yeah, that kind of reminded me of the Rose Bowl. Like he knew it in that instant because he was so locked in on it. And it was just like, I'm like, yeah. Cause it didn't hit me that was the same run, but it hit him. It was amazing.
So harsh transition. Cause we got to talk about it. Officiating.
Oh yeah.
I think it was a very poorly officiated game. I don't think it was relegated to just Arizona State. We were just trying to survive at some point. I think we were holding on maybe every other play, and they weren't throwing a ton of those flags. And so Texas fans have a right to be upset about that. That was a big, fast, physical, nasty, dirty defense, and guys were just doing what they could. And if they had thrown some flags, it certainly would have been justified. But I think it takes only a tried and true burnt orange brain Texas fan to say that some of the biggest missed calls certainly were benefited Texas. They absolutely did. Multiple face masks missed on Cam Scatterbu. The game winning
and Sam Levitt in the first.
Oh gosh,
there was one he was like thrown down by his head. And early in the game,
guys jumping on people who were already down,
twisting ankles in the pile. You could see stuff going on. And like, and again, I don't want to make accusations or whatever, but it just looked like there was we called a little bit of extras going on in the, and that happens from both sides. You can never really see all of it. And God knows I know some offensive linemen who will remain nameless who love to kind of give it and when you're down at the bottom of the pile. If you're listening, you know who you are. But there was stuff like, I mean, there was one play where I think it was Stovall was like held up and it was basically his forward progress had stopped, and one of their safeties, it wasn't Taft, but they came flying in and just Stovall like jumped to the ground and the guy just missed like spearing him and like kind of lodged his head in the ground. And I remember Jake and I just kind of looked at each other like, dude, these guys are, I mean, they're playing for keeps, right? And I mean, just to kind of go on it, I mean, the one, I know Cam Scatterbu has like a 21-inch neck, but that the ripping of the helmet off is so dangerous. Probably should have been a flagrant personal foul.
Certainly should have gotten him or lost him the benefit of the doubt when it came to the targeting.
100%, right?
Because Arizona State, like Miles Rouser's walking around here like if he breathes incorrectly, he's getting a 15-yard flag. Some players earn that reputation. They earn it. He earned it. I'm not saying Miles Rouser's treated unfairly. And I will say, I sat down next to some Texas fans in the stands and they said, what do we need to know about Arizona State? I was like, anything could happen today, to be honest. And I pointed at number 4 on the field on defense and I said, but he is getting a flag today. I said, there's one thing I can guarantee. And I was like, rightly or wrongly, that guy's going to get a 15-yard flag. And it ended up being like the earliest pass interference of all time, which was very funny, very on brand for him. I love Miles Rouser. He's probably my favorite player on this team. But like some people, what my point is Taffy not only interfering, holding, but then ripping Cam Scatterbu's helmet off. I'm like, okay, that's the type of stuff that should get the bullseye on your back when it comes to officiating. So for the instant and I think the instant reaction of the officials actually goes into maybe how this was reviewed. But for that to not be targeting, that seems to be, as far as Arizona State fans in spaces, even the fact that the game-winning touchdown pass hit the ground and Arizona State should have won, yada, yada, yada.
100%.
People really seem to be stuck on this targeting call.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the 4th and 13, like that ball hits the ground.
Yeah.
And the fact that that's not reviewed, even if they would have reviewed it and said, no, it's a catch because his butt hit the ground and he had control and then he loses it, then that's fine. But why wasn't it reviewed? And look,
in the NFL, that game's over. Sun Devils win. But the NCAA doesn't have like the auto review of every score.
Right. So, I mean, and I think it's such a weird one because you have the coaching staff, right? Kenny can only say so much. Graham Rossini can only say so much. But thankfully, I don't, at least as of right now, I do not work for the university, so I can say what I want. so that with that disclaimer out of the way.
Just text me if you get a job offer. I'll scrub this show.
Okay, good. Perfect. Fantastic. But I looked up something, well, look, the targeting really angers me, and regardless of the outcome of the game, because you have Milko and Stovall on the ground. What I didn't realize is, because I was actually just talking to my brother, who was a linebacker at Oregon, and and we were talking about the targeting, and I didn't realize that they didn't show Stovall on the ground on the actual broadcast.
Really?
They didn't show him posturing and in the mummy pose, right? And by the way, this does not make me feel comfortable talking about this because I don't like talking about it.
Horrible.
And it's like, it was horrible to see on the field, especially being down on the field. And I knew that he was hurt, like, badly. He didn't move, I don't think, for 4 minutes.
No.
And they have this huge team of doctors surrounding him. There are even Texas players out on the field praying for him because everybody knows that he is hurt, right? So what happens, I actually looked up what happens to the brain in that situation and like what causes that whole posturing mummy pose thing. It's not good.
You're just laying there hearing University of Arizona's band music, basically.
Yeah. And it's like, so there's like the parts of the midbrain and everything. I'm not a doctor, obviously, but I'm just reading like the description, but it's like the things that control your motion are still active, which is why things are moving, but like your middle brain like isn't functioning properly. No. Essentially what happens. And so the whole point of the targeting is they're literally reviewing the call with a mostly motionless body laying in the middle of the field. If targeting isn't if targeting is anything, it's to prevent that from happening.
It's not just procedural. We all got caught up in that conversation of like, oh, well, it was his crown. Like, the entire point of the rule is to protect kids' brains, children's brains.
Correct. That like 1,000%, that is what it is there to do, is to stop that from happening. We don't want that in our sport. We want kids to be protected. And it is the referee's duty to protect the kids. And so when they say, oh, that's just, what is it, like incidental contact to the skull that allows a guy to be unconscious? And look, hits happen and people can get knocked out and things like that. But the whole point of targeting is to get rid of that. And so to not have that called, it's kind of like negligent, in my opinion, and again, I don't usually like talking about refs and whatnot, but it's just negligence. It's like you're not protecting the players, and that's what targeting is supposed to be about.
Well, what was strange was to see every single person in the country say, based on my understanding, this isn't a question. Not a question.
10 out of 10.
And we had just been through this the week before saying like, man, what a great hit by Shamari Simmons. What a
amazing
great
hit. As a quarterback, that was a totally legit hit.
Yeah,
as a quarterback, I'm like, yeah, 100%. That's it. Planted his face mask right in the guy's chest, like great tackle. Nothing egregious about it.
But their helmets made contact, so then, all right, our punishment is our punishment. I guess it is what it is.
Right.
And then to find out, no, that's not the case. This hit was more egregious than that one. You have all of these markers, crown of helmet, defenseless receiver. And then the biggest evidence of all, you have someone who is suffering the consequences of this hit on the ground.
Who's going through all sorts of protocols by medical professionals because of this contact. that is to his head, regardless. So I don't know. And and again, I don't like to single people out. I keep saying I don't like to do things and then I keep doing them. But yeah, and it's the same player who ripped off Cam Scadaboo's helmet. It's also the same player that if you watch the pitch sweep pass that he completes downfield, as he's trailing the receiver, he kicks at the receiver's ankles to try to trip him.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not he's a great player. I'm not a fan of his antics during the game. Let's just say that. I know he's a great player. And I don't want to come down. Maybe he was just having a day. I don't know what, but the rules are the rules. Like, you can't do any of those things.
Yeah.
Right. Can't trip players, can't rip people's helmets off. I mean, it looked like he wanted Cam Scadaboo's. Yeah, again, I'm going to stop, but, it just, there was a lot of things that happened, and the officiating on the sidelines, I felt like one side was throwing flags for contact downfield and there were pass interference calls. The other side of the field was not, and they were just kind of letting them play. And yeah, they just kind of felt a little bit out of their depth that game. And I'll be perfectly frank, I was so convinced that the targeting call was coming that I even said out loud, I said, if they don't call this, I'm afraid people are going to come from the stands and rush the field. Like,
well,
it was, I thought it was that obvious.
Texas set that precedent at home against Georgia, throwing trash on the field, getting a call overturned.
Right.
And that is ridiculous. That is the other thing I do want to point out. Had the roles been reversed, and God forbid the roles been reversed and Arizona State wins the game, those Texas fans, and not necessarily the ones in the stadium because there weren't a lot of them, we'd never hear the end of it. And I'm going to take the ASU hat off for a second. It probably would have been justified. It probably would have been justified because it was.
If that call goes against us, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to think that I'm pretty objective in these cases, with the 3 pass interference penalties at the end of the Rose Bowl. I didn't watch the Rose Bowl up until about 18 months ago, I think. Oof. And so I was always convinced that those pass interference penalties were like completely made up and fabricated. And then I watched it and I'm like, oh yeah, those were pass interference penalties. So I like to think that I like to think that I can be objective in these things. And and if those calls, if they would have been reversed, it just, you're absolutely right. The Texas fan base, in my limited, I'm sure they're amazing Texas fans and super but they were pretty chirpy after the game. Just, I mean, again, this is completely observational from my own personal, just what I saw and heard after the game in Atlanta. One young guy kind of, and again, it takes a lot. I usually have a pretty long fuse, but this one kid said to me, he goes, we were kind of talking about targeting, and I even went up and asked one random guy sitting at a table because I was just curious, and I said, targeting or not targeting? And he went, oh no way. And I was just like, end of conversation. I walked away.
A group of Texas fans asked me to take their picture with the field in the background.
Yeah.
Give me their phone. And I was like, okay, on 3, 1, 2, 3, say targeting. Like, with a photo of them is them like, what the hell?
Oh, that's why I love you, Ralph. I think that's fantastic.
I think you'll appreciate this. So I'm at Ted Turner's Steakhouse after the game, sitting with my wife, and she would, her whole thing was like, I almost wish we got our ass kicked. Because she was just like, man,
would have been easier.
Yeah. And so I'm like having to process this. And I leave the table to go hang my coat. And there's this older man, maybe late 60s, early 70s, in full like burnt orange, sitting at the bar. And then there's this older ASU, maybe got 5-6 years on him, ASU fan, kind of like hobbling his way out the door. And he puts his hand on the shoulder of the man at the bar and he says, did we at least give you a challenge? And then I watched these two men briefly, maybe like 20 seconds, have like an exchange based in like mutual respect.
Okay, good.
And
I'm
I was
glad that
like,
actually
hell yeah,
happened.
man. Like but like you said, and then I talked to you the next morning and you're telling me about your experience. And I'm like, damn, it's like
Oh, so some
very
young,
opposite ends of the spectrum.
some young kid, like, we're talking and we're having the targeting discussion, and I'm like, anyway, my standpoint on it. And then he said, what did he say to me? He said, let's face it, you guys are just lucky to be here, and try to say it like in a nice way.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
let's
Yes.
face it, you guys are just lucky to be here. And I like snapped.
We have the same amount of losing seasons since 2014, but thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
like, dude, you were relevant in the early 2000s. Like, get out of here with
We
that.
both suffered through Steve Patterson. We are not so dissimilar, you and I.
That one got me, and I was just like, oh no, okay, no, all right. And yeah, it was an interesting night. But I mean, the one thing is that uh, when you say your wife, I get what she means. Like, it would have been easier if we just kind of would have gotten blown out, and that would have been the end of it. But I think, and I was saying it the night of, after the game, I really think that Arizona State became a national brand again, because like I said, I got more texts that day than ever, I think, in any day of ever. And people were rooting for us. They wanted us to win. They feel we got hosed. So we got a lot of sympathy votes,
Yeah.
right? A lot of people respected the fight. And then, I think if one thing of Americans, we don't like when we see the underdog fight the good fight and then seemingly it gets taken from them.
Right.
Right. And so I think a lot of Americans are now sort of ASU fans. And when ASU shows up the next time, I think that you'll have a lot of people rooting for them. And that's only a good thing. And again, the eyes of the nation were on that game. I think peak viewership was like 23.4 million or something. It was the best quarterfinal game. It was on New Year's Day. There was nothing else to do, and people were watching that game all around the country.
Yeah. And no one's going to forget that Cam Scadaboo second half. And that's kind of where I want to close out, because it is one of those things that we're going to have a million opportunities to talk about from a million different angles. But this time here with you, I just want to I do want to give that man his due, because I stayed back, and all the Arizona State parents and families stayed in their section. And I looked at my wife and I was like, are you cool if we hang out for an hour? I want to see these players talk to their parents. And she said, yeah. So we moved over sections and I just watched one by one as the players came in. P.S. Just as an aside, the person whose job it was to get the players down out of the stands to get on the bus so that they could go home was DJ Foster. And there is nothing funnier to me watching DJ Foster go from like Arizona high school football legend to Arizona State University football legend to playing for Bill Belichick in New England to being a hometown Arizona Cardinal special teams ace to being like the grouchy adult trying to wrangle kids. That is the funniest. Oh my gosh, I was in tears laughing at how annoyed he was trying to get like Leaf Fountainu to say goodbye to his giant family and get on the bus. Like I had to throw that out there. That was very entertaining. Shout out to DJ Foster. But so I'm there.
That's really funny.
Cam Scadaboo comes out and he stays in the stands for 15 minutes taking pictures with everyone's family members. Like everybody wanted to share that moment with him, and he was very gracious with his time. But what a special kid. What a special second half. And it's not even, people are, going to talk about like maybe they bottle him up in the first half. My biggest memory from this game, the real we're here moment, is they threw a swing pass to Cam Scadaboo and the corner comes up and that collision was nasty.
Yeah.
And he trucks the defensive back who drops down and holds his ankle and then holds on for dear life. And people look at that like, oh, no gain. Good job, Texas. No, that was like the most brutal no gain. Like the defense knew right then and there, this guy is different. He's different. Yeah. In the second half, he was able to put that show. Anybody who watched it in person on television, they're going to remember it forever. Just what is your impression of this kid and that second half performance?
Well, I think the Texas defense came out they thought that they could just beat him into submission. Like that was my feeling on the field. Like the way they were trying to hit hard. You could use other words, what they were trying to do, and they were just trying to beat him up. They were
What
trying to beat
percentage
him
of
up.
that is respect? What percentage of that is resentment? Because he did say some things before the game, betting on himself, talking about himself. Do you think that? So, I mean, you've been in these football locker rooms. Is it like, hey, this guy is good, like we got to be on our P's and Q's, or is it like, screw this guy, we're going to show him?
The latter, for sure. There's no question. It's the latter. They were like, we are the best defense in the country, right? Arguably the best defense in the country. We have like specimens all over the place. You went through the Big 12 and who have you really played, and you're going to learn, and we've been up against the big boys, and we're going to put you in your place. That's what they came out to do.
Now, Texas claiming SEC in year one was very fun.
It's so weird, right? Like it doesn't really, compute for me. But the thing, but that's what it felt like on the field. It was like, we're going to put you in your place. We're going to dominate you. And then, there was that whole Instagram thing where, he had to puke and everything else. And then one of the Texas players like posted the thing on Instagram, which who the hell's on Instagram during halftime?
Yeah. Colin Simmons, who is going to be, I mean, he's got like Micah Parsons potential, right? Gets on Instagram at halftime and basically says like Cam Scatterbo is shit.
Right.
However you want to interpret that emoji, he didn't do shit or he is shit. You're on Instagram at halftime up 17-3 calling him a bum.
Yeah. And say like he doesn't want anything to do with this defense. Like he's already giving up. And then he goes out and he does what he does in the second half. And the one thing I do want to say before I continue on about him is I have to give a shout out to the offensive line because they were incredible.
Oh yeah.
And the offensive line, and it was, they were majestic in the second half and what they did against, I recently, I watched the Ohio State Texas game. I mean, we shoved the ball down Texas's throat in the second half.
Yeah.
We had 29 first downs, I think. Ohio State only had 18 first downs in that next game. We were going toe to toe, and we were just we beat them. What was it? We beat them 21-7 in the second half, right?
Yeah. They had the ball for like 8 seconds total all game,
which is just crazy. And so shout out to the O-line, and the fact that they're all coming back for next year is just incredible. That's what really gets me excited. And then they've added as well. So shout out to you big boys up front, and you guys were incredible. So that being said, what Cam did and his tenacity, his fight, I know he wasn't feeling well in the second half. I know Sam Levitt wasn't feeling well in the second half. Like his ankle was bothering him, and these guys were nothing but grit. And to go out and just to not back down. And they could have easily folded and just gone, like, you know what? We made it to the college football playoff. This was super sweet. We're Big 12 champions. But no, they like truly believed. They believed. That's what, I feel like Ted Lasso, just believe.
Yeah.
And yeah, they backed themselves before the game. And I have no problem with that whatsoever, because these guys aren't national names. They are now. They are now because of what they left out there on the field. So for him to go out and just continue to fight and fight and fight, he now has more touchdown passes than I do. It's just the fact that I think he had 100 yards receiving or really close to it. And what more can you ask for a player? And my favorite thing about Cam Scatterbo goes back to when I went to, I talked about briefly before, when I went to that staff meeting and I was outside the building. It was 6:45 in the morning, and I was kind of texting to try to find out who I'm supposed to talk to get in the building, because it's all, key pass. And Cam Scatterbo walks up and he's like, "Hey man," he goes, "Here, let me get you in there." He doesn't know me from anybody. Like, and he scans me in. He opens the door for me. I walk in, and there's a security guard at the desk, but it's Cam that asked me. He's like, "Where are you going?" I said, "Oh, I'm supposed to go to the staff meeting." He goes, "Oh, okay, that's up on the third floor." And I go, and he gets the elevator for me, presses the button for the elevator, gets me in the elevator, and then I realize that I can't press a button without a key card. And then he waits, and he actually comes in and scans his key card to get me up there, presses button, and gives me exact directions on where I'm supposed to go. And like, that's the kind of stuff that just makes me love this kid. Like, it's because he's just a good guy. He does everything right. He, I mean, as far as just somebody that ASU as a fan can be proud of. And again, and Cam's, like we were talked about before with Jake, Cam's going to be a guy who's going to be, it's not all me. It's about this team and what our team did and what our defense did. And it was a joint effort and everything else, but that's what makes him great. And what a season for the ages. And just, he gave us our pride back in a way,
Yeah.
as Sun Devils and on a national stage. And so forever will be there will be 4 jerseys in the stands. I hope for a very, very long time. And like you said, there's going to be a whole new group, a whole new generation of fans that are going to be Scatterboo fans, right? Because not everybody was around for Pat Tillman, not everybody was around for Jake Plummer and Danny White and Jeff Van Raphorst and all the 87 guys and 86, 87 guys. And so to give this a new refresh, the maroon and gold is shining bright right now. And that's thanks to Cam Scatterboo.
And he's going to provide that pathway for more people to get to know those people that mean so much to you.
Yeah. 100%.
You know why those people are special firsthand, and because of Cam Scatterboo, because of this team, the offensive line, who you just shouted out, like Kyle Scott, suplex, touchdown, fantastic.
Awesome. Loved it.
Texas fans were mad about that one, and I was like, no, you got to give us that, because if you would have done it, I would have thought it was cool too. Like, that was the best.
It was incredible.
Yeah. But Cam Scatterboo is going to be a point of entry for people to understand why that stadium, and people complain about this, but it's actually one of my favorite things, why that stadium sometimes is filled with blue hairs.
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to have people who are steadfast in supporting Arizona State through generations, because it meant they at one point they were you, and to be there in that stadium with those people and find out what their Sun Devil story is, that's going to be the connective tissue that gets us through. I do believe that, and I don't want it to just continue to be a once every 10 years thing for Arizona State, that they put together a special season, 87, 96, maybe, you can argue for like 04 or 07, and then
right.
2013, 2014, and then 2024. I don't want that to be what ASU is known for anymore. Now that we're in the Big 12, there's hope from week to week. So some of the way that the teams in the Pac-12 were constructed, you would go into Autzen and you're like, well, probably not.
Yeah.
You're not going to go into Ames and think, or even Manhattan like this year. You're not going to go into these games and say, likely impossible, maybe I won't watch this game live, or maybe I'll wait to tune into the fourth quarter until it's close or whatever. The greatest thing about the Big 12, which Texas was annoyed by and couldn't wait to get out of there, is that anything can happen any week. And I love it when anything can happen. I don't love that, it used to be like, hey, we're 6-1 going into USC week, and there's a 95% chance we get truck sticked by all these SoCal recruits. And so, that's the thing I'm really, really enjoying about being part of the Big 12, is that this could be a regular thing. And so, yeah, get out to the stadium, get to know some of these people who fell in love with the 1975 undefeated team, the 1987 Jeff Van Raphorst team, your team, like, to get some of these guys back around who were Yeah, I'm very interested in the 04, 07 guys who now have teenage kids.
Right.
Because,
Exactly.
are we going to finally start to see, like Roy Oliver? Roy Oliver might end up being the best Arizona high school player ever. And that's RJ Oliver's son. And that's a like bleeding maroon and gold all over the place, guys. So, are we about to finally see some of these dividends paid from, people raising their kids in the valley? Stick around and find out. I promise you it's going to be fun. And if nothing else, and Kyle Dodd always said this about spaces, if nothing else, even in a down year, we have each other. So invest, invest in Arizona State. This hopefully it's not the last peak before we hit another valley, but like if for some reason we're not out here competing for a college football playoff in 2025, we're going to be on spaces talking about 2024. Come in, get your medicine,
Right. I mean, I guess the first thing that I have to say is that if you don't have your season tickets yet, get them. Like, I mean, if nothing else, get your season tickets and get out there, because if you look at the schedule for 25, I mean, first of all, you're going to have 16, 17 of the starters from this team that are going to be back there. It's the run it back year. It's like, let's do it again. It's not a rebuild year. It's a reload year. Like, I mean, that's what we want, right? We want to reload.
Yes,
we don't want to
we are
rebuild.
guaranteed at least 8 Miles Rouser personal fouls in 2025.
But at the same time, how many turnovers does our defense generate? That's the beauty of our defense.
Oh, yeah. No, this is not an insult. You need an enforcer. Enforcer. I'm still a Vontez Burfict fan.
I was just going to say, anybody remember Vontez Burfict? It's still one of my favorite pictures ever of him pointing at the USC quarterback, like across the line, just over the center's head. I love that so much. I said it, my center in high school went to USC, not to play, but to go to school there. I sent him that picture all the time. Just like, hey, we're here. And even I talked to him recently, and he was just like, where did ASU come from? What happened? And I said, well, where have you been? We've all been watching it, and we were lucky enough to go through it. And what not to be like the old, Bill Murray, what this incredible Cinderella story, coming out of nowhere. But we were. It's a Cinderella season, and my favorite moment during the game, and I took a picture of it and I posted it, and I put the word legacy on it. And it was when Jake, like, it was getting tight, and Jake kind of had his arms crossed, and he had his hand up, but in front of his mouth, and he was looking, and Sam Levitt was right in front of him, and he was talking to Kenny. And you could just see the like how much Jake was pulling for Sam in that moment, and how much it meant to him, and how nervous he was. And I just pulled out my phone super quick and just like snapped a shot just over Jake's shoulder with Sam sort of like out of focus, like right in front of him. And I put the word legacy on it. And that's what this is about, right? This is why we're Sun Devils. This is why we love our school. And that's the beauty of college football, is the legacy aspect. We're not some program that's just come out of nowhere. I mean, with all due respect to Oregon, I mean, when my brother went there, he graduated from high school in '88. I think in '89 or '90 was the first bowl game that Oregon had ever been to. I was at that game. It was in Shreveport. It was the Poulon Weed Eater Shreveport, Louisiana Independence Bowl. And it was negative 17 degrees below zero. There's a freak storm. It was miserable. But that was Oregon's first bowl game. That was 1990. Yeah. We've got legacy that goes back, and we've got, in my opinion, the greatest rivalry, the football rivalry, and the oldest rivalry. I mean, we've got the Territorial Cup. We've got everything to go along with it, and but it always comes back to that sleeping giant thing.
Yeah. How do you feel about my because I've been for years, I'm saying, like, guys, the sleeping giant's not the team, it's us. Like it's the community. Like it's the team's going to be what it is. It's the sleeping giant is this enormous public university that has 14,000 graduates every single year, filling up that stadium, making tickets hard to get. Like that's the sleeping giant.
Yeah,
you can have a good team without support.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there are programs in this country, and you can argue, oh, well, there's nothing else for people to do, but people care, and it comes down to it, you have to inject your energy into something if you want it to succeed. It's like you can't just. It's not. We're not, Caesar, laying in our, having grapes drop, sort of dangled into our mouth and say like, entertain me. We're not Roman Empire,
Of
Roman
course,
emperors,
yes. Kenny
and it's
Dillingham's slogan wasn't activate the football team; it was activate the Valley.
activate the valley. And there, and again, I don't, not to call the fan base out or whatever, but it's just like I know the passion's there. We are a passionate fan base. We are an emotional fan base, and and I love that about us, and that's what makes it exciting when we're winning. But we just need to calm down a little when things aren't going our way, and just get your butt in the stadium, and not be like, oh well, I've got some other stuff I got to do. I'm going to hit up Home Depot, and I'll probably DVR the game and eventually get there. And listen, there's things that the university can do to make things better. I believe for the game day experience and all that kind of stuff. There's everybody's got their part to play, but it takes, and to Kenny's point, it takes everyone. It takes the Valley. The Valley includes the university. It includes the football team. It includes, the weight room and Coach Joe, and what a legend he is, and what he's done. And I can't wait to see. I mean, like, what is it? Kanye Udo coming
Oh yeah,
from Army. I posted. I said, give him 9 months with Coach Joe. Oh my, that guy's going to be a beast. Like, get ready for
oh my
part
gosh,
two.
yeah,
Not to put too much pressure on him. And I know we have other like amazing running backs. Our running back room is going to be stacked. But I'm excited, but it's get your season tickets, get out there, do what you can. I know it's a tough thing. The whole NIL thing is weird. Like, donate all your money, your after tax money, but it is. And just the one thing that we have probably as much, I put us on par with Ohio State, is we have numbers. We have numbers. We have so many graduates from Arizona State. That's part of our power that
yeah,
we need to use. Is we don't need like just a few gazillionaires to give just tons of money. We have our power is the populace, is the people. And so if we get everyone and as many people as we possibly can, even just giving small amounts, all that adds up big
yeah.
time,
And
real quick.
if we educate people on how to personalize NIL, that's the toughest thing, is that people think it's just like, oh, give ASU your money and trust ASU with your money. First of all, that's not the direction things are moving. And
Right.
we can get more into that later, but you still do have the ability to go to ASU's roster on the website, find a player, click on their profile, and give them money directly for a service using NIL. Like, you can pay a player to come play catch at your kid's birthday party.
Which is incredible.
Yes, no, that's what it should be. That's
Right.
what it should be. You should be able to capitalize on the fact that you are a college football player generating revenue for everybody around you, and that you have a name that has value, quantifiable value. And the value that you bring is that you bring joy, entertainment, excitement to somebody's life, and you have the opportunity, because you don't have to do this, but you have the opportunity to engage with the community in a way that creates connective tissue that's going to last generations. Not every
Yep.
player knows how to take advantage of that. They'll learn over time, but also not every fan knows how to take advantage of that. And we've got to find a way to make people realize that NIL, like, you used to just say, like, I'm gonna support the team by buying a ticket, but it would be so cool to just shake somebody's hand and tell them what they mean to me. Well, now guess what? That $100 handshake is not only legal, it's encouraged.
Yeah, 100%. And if we're nothing else, we're number one in innovation, right? Like, this is what we're
Yeah.
supposed to do. We figure out solutions, and it means, I think it means more to the players. I mean, you bring up that scenario of like having, a player come and like play catch at your kid's birthday party, and everybody just kind of, I think the naysayers will just be like, oh well, they just want money. And it's like, no, because what it is it allows them to make some money because they're just students, right? And yes, there are some players that are paid a lot of money, but they're on, there's a lot of guys who aren't at all. And so, but I think what really matters is like, you know how special that is to go to your kid's birthday party and to be appreciated as a player. It's not just money's just one aspect of it. It's the ability to participate in your community. It's to interact. It's to be a part of the larger collective, not the NIL collective, but the collective that is Arizona State University and the Sun Devil for Life Brotherhood and everything else. And so when they get the opportunity to give something for not just give me money. And I get it. There are some probably players that are out there, you hear like some of these transfer players are like, first question now is like, what are you going to pay me? But really from what I hear in and around the program, there are guys that are just, there's simple things that mean a lot, to go out to take their girlfriend out to dinner and like have their dinner covered. Right. Or, just, go to movie tickets, things like that. These things matter to these kids. And they're not they're not the players you see on ESPN with, the chains and whatnot and like whatever and the super cars and you hear these millions of dollars numbers thrown around. Those are very few and far between. These guys, like little things matter to these guys a lot, like a bike, or, just simple things. And so we all have a part to play in making these guys feel special and getting them what they deserve. Because think about the joy that you got from this season. I mean, the joy that I got is just, like I said, it was one of the top 5 trips of my life. And I would not give up New Year's Day 2025 for anything. No way.
I'm just, man, I hate to get sappy. I think I planned to sit with you for an hour today, and of course it turned into this. Of course it did.
Of course.
But like, one of my favorite things about that is that like just debriefing with you in the morning before we both just left.
Yeah.
Like that was such a cool opportunity and cool moment.
It was, and it's all. I mean that's what it's about, right? It's about going through these things together. Win. I always want to say win, lose, or draw because I'm married to a British woman, but with soccer and everything else. But it's like win or lose, we are here, and we're even more important to each other than ever. We learned it during COVID, and that sort of that space that was started by Jedi ASU and that was amazing. That was an incredible thing to go through and to have each other to talk to each other about things. And that's really where my love of the sort of online connection, especially being all the way out here in Spain. Like I don't have people around me that I can talk to about this stuff all the time.
Right. I'm in Charlotte, the Barcelona of.
Yeah, we're both this sort of we're you're halfway to me, right? Yeah, the Barcelona of the Barcelona of the Southwest or Southeast. Sorry.
Yeah.
But it's so for me to have that and that was to if anybody's listening that I got to talk to whilst I was there. And I got to talk to so many people, meet new people, take pictures with people and just talk about the game. And after the game, I went back to the hotel and there people were kind of down. And I went and I kind of had this clock going in me. And about every like 15 or 20 minutes, I would just sing out a Go Devils Go. and everybody kind of, and you could feel the kind of crowd kind of pick up a little bit, and like there's a little bit of murmur and it was like, okay, and it's like, don't worry, we'll be back, like this isn't the end, wasn't our only shot we'll ever have. This is the beginning. And back to what you were saying of this is a pretty darn good start to the Big 12 era.
Yeah.
I mean, who would have predicted this, right?
Right. No, literally no one.
And
so I hate to like have express any regrets, but I wish, because it really is about connections and relationships. And one of the players that I got to know over the last few years was Jordan Clark. And it's for Jordan Clark alone that I'm rooting for Notre Dame against Ohio State. But I wish, I hope that there is some part of a lot of these players who, I mean, if I was in their shoes, I understand why they did it, but your Ricky Pearsall's out there, your Jordan Clark. I hope we can wrap our mind around the idea that some of these guys, and it's going to be tough for people with a guy like Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels has an ASU degree. Like he literally is a Sun Devil, right? And so, I hope that it's okay at some point for some people to wrap their minds around the fact that some of these people who were only here for part of their time, and this is something Doug Tamaro talks about, like how are we going to Ring of Honor people who are always like moving around? But I hope that there is some part of them who is like, this is something that I do want to go back and be a part of to some extent.
I think so. I mean, just look at me.
That's why I brought it up. That's why I brought it up.
My degree does not say Arizona State. I graduated from Santa Clara.
That's why I brought it up. You're the model for this, and I hope that there's a time when Ricky Pearsall can talk about his time as a Sun Devil and be accepted as a Sun, because you found your way back, right?
Yeah, 100%. And it was a really hard time. And when I left ASU, I mean, I've talked about it pretty openly, but once my friend was killed, and strangely enough, weirdly enough, today is January 17th, and this is the anniversary of my father dying of cancer when I was 14 years old, and 5 years later, my best friend, her dad, and her 14-year-old brother being hit by a drunk driver and being killed. All three of them killed instantly on the 5th year anniversary of my own father's death. So today, January 17th, shout out to them. But it was a really hard thing when I ended up walking away from football. I ended up walking away in the middle of the semester from ASU. And quite frankly, Tempe was a really dark place for me for a long time. And it was really tough. And it was almost like I couldn't even come back because of just the scars and the memories and the things. It was just too hard. What wasn't, what didn't transpire, and my dreams and things like that. And so
it makes me think about Jermaine Lole.
Yeah, and it's not the end. It's not the end. And then I sort of got an invitation from the university, and I think that will help. I think the university reaching out to players, ex-players, when their time is done at the other schools and things, and keeping that open door policy, and with guys like Doug Tamaro around and Graham Rossini, I think that will, and Marcus Williams, that will be the case, and to just give that invitation saying, hey man, you're welcome back here. Like, come on back. Like if you put on that jersey and you've been out on that field, you're a Sun Devil. Like you just are. You know what it means. You went there, whether you were in the dorms or whether you transferred late. I mean, Cam Scatterbo didn't start at Arizona State. Cam Scatterbo went to Sacramento State, his freshman year and sophomore year, and I think even his third year, right? Because he only spent 2 with us. So he would have spent 3 years at Sac State. He's going to be one of the legends of all time. And so it's not the old way anymore. It's not like you've got to finish out. You've got to, but by the way, shout out to the guys that do. I mean, McCullough, like who sat it out through everything and like through the dark times and stayed and didn't transfer and then now to be rewarded with this is just one of the great Sun Devil stories I think that there is. And so it's they should be welcome back. And I know it's sometimes leaves a bad taste in fans' mouths when guys go seek their greener pastures elsewhere, but that doesn't mean they all have their reasons, and we all make our individual choices for what we do. And but I think eventually, you'll have a lot of those guys come back and probably want to be around in the programs and probably want to live in the Valley and they'll probably start getting involved. And, and it really made me excited. Jake has always been in and around the program, but this is the most fired up I've seen him around it. And so to get him where he's loving it and he's having a good time, which it gets everybody else, you need those leaders. And for me, I love the program. I love the school. I graduated from Santa Clara, but I never felt about Santa Clara what I do about Arizona State, not even anywhere close. It was just somewhere to go get my degree from.
How fun was it to watch Steve Nash take down Arizona, though?
It was pretty awesome. And that was it was a weird moment when Steve Nash came and talked to the football team this year. And I'm like, whoa, I'm having a weird, like, Santa Clara Bronco, Arizona State Sun Devils moment here. Like, this doesn't mean anything. I mean, obviously having Steve Nash come to talk to your team means a lot to a lot of people, but it was like a weird kind of thing for me. I'm like, oh, this is cool. Like, process over outcome. I love it.
That's how I felt about Xavier Valladay. I'm like, oh, I'm no longer the only, like, Wyoming Devil.
Yeah, right. And I love Xavier Valladay and, like, these guys, like Sean Aguano. Shout out to Sean Aguano. God, what a great football coach, and just what a even better human being. When he brought the leadership council out when he was in charge of the interim, when he took over and brought the leadership council out to before my concert, and we walked around, and X Valladay told me that he loves singing and things like that, and like his mom was a singer awesome. And everything else. And I'm like, man, I want to sing with X Valladay. Like, we're gonna do like a duet or something. But it's just
like it's a very Sun Devil Christmas album.
It's coming. There's no question.
Well, someone's gonna have to hunt down Samson Takachi. He's out there somewhere.
Right. There's quite a few Sun Devil musicians out there, we'll put them together.
And Balaj are both out there making music too.
See, I'm actually working on putting together something for the fall. There are things in motion, and I'm talking to people about doing something this fall. If the Big 12 would please hurry up and release the schedule so we could get the games sorted out. Like, why does the SEC have a schedule but the Big 12 doesn't yet? The Pac-12 is even worse, so I can't really complain too much, but I would love to have that Big 12 schedule as soon as humanly possible.
Oh, you are you done making trips on a whim after this Peach Bowl?
My wallet is considerably lighter after this Peach Bowl. I mean, booking a over New Year's transatlantic flight plus hotel and all the expenses that go along with it. Yeah. Wait.
I can see why Texas fans were like, well, yeah, we'll just go to the Cotton Bowl next week.
It's a big,
we're in 2 weeks before that. It gets tough being successful. And Kenny Dillingham, he said, like, yeah, success is expensive. You got to spend money to get here, and then you got to spend money to stay here.
I mean, it is. And I think we would have been like one of the first teams to play multiple bowl games. Or I don't know, there was some weird stat that somebody told me. And then we would have gone from Dallas to Atlanta, back to Dallas, and then to Atlanta again, or something like that. Something weird if we would have won out and been in the national championship. But I do have to share one like anecdote, and that was at halftime. We Jake and I went running up to visit our friends up in one of the boxes or whatever, and we're sitting there and we're just we're talking and everything else, and Jake kind of pulls me aside and he goes, "Dude, just so you know," he goes, "a little birdie told me that they're going to run the pitch sweep pass from 1997 or 1996," and I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "No way!" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Keep an eye out for it." And then for that to be, so somebody on the coaching staff told him about it, and then he told me at halftime, and I remember we were on the sideline, and Cam was a little bit deeper than he normally is, and I just hit Jake, and I'm like, "Here it is, like this is it." And then the fact that he threw it and 42 yards, 42. So beautifully perfect. So it was what a game, what an experience. For those of you that made the trip, who were lucky enough to make the trip, well freaking done. A lot of people ask me, what did it sound like down on the field? Like, who was louder. The Arizona State fans were so much louder than the Texas fans. It wasn't even close. I didn't even hear the Texas fans until like the last play.
Yeah,
Like
so
that's what it
we
felt like.
did like a 20-minute spaces after the game. Kind of wish that we hadn't, because I still didn't have my bearings. But a woman came on there, and this is what made it all worth it. And she like was crying, and she's like, the way it sounded on television was overwhelming.
Really?
Yeah, that like I have goosebumps right now talking about it, because she's the one who closed us out. I think her name was Erin, and she was just like, yeah, it was the way that you guys who went represented us.
100%.
The way it sound, just for, and I'm an auditory person. I love,
Yeah.
And I have not had the ability to go back and re-experience it yet. But
yeah, it was. I mean, I was jumping around like an idiot on the sideline, just trying to get everybody going, and it's not like I needed to do much, but it was and to all those fans that were down in that section, like where we were hanging out, like they were amazing, and it was just this whole, you could just feel it, and it was just amazing from the field. You looked up, and it wasn't just the first section; it was the section, and there was like a third, like sort of loge seating section that was way up there. I couldn't even make the people out. Like it was incredible, but the place was just rocking. It was so loud. And then I know you were confident in it, but when that ball hit off the upright, it was just like, oh my God, maybe this is our time. Like this is it. This is it. On the 4th and 13, I was in his.
That was all I had in that moment, was like, no, I just got to know this is going to, I have to. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But
it doesn't. Yeah.
This game
got to believe.
And there were like 5 grown men ASU fans in front of me. I mean,
crying.
One was drunk and dancing, and the other 4 were crying.
Perfect.
And my wife cried twice, and it was just, what an experience. I would say that, like, I want to throw just this moment out there because I want to make sure it gets talked about. It really felt like we were up against it when we couldn't punch it in from the 1. And then Shamari Simmons goes out there, forces a fumble, and then gets the safety himself on the fumble recovery.
Who tackles him? I know. Oh, if only Quinn Ewers would have dropped that, but it is what it is. There were so many.
Shamari Simmons to come back in the game and on his first play score.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And it's always
the beginning of the energy upswing, and it just lasted the whole second half and into the overtimes.
Well, can we talk about, with 2 minutes to go in the second quarter, and it's, what was it? I think it was 4th and 9, and we run the fake punt from our own 20. Yeah. We're down 17-3. If that doesn't work, like if he throws even if he throws an incomplete pass, and that was an amazing catch, by the way. That was like, I mean, he was.
Yeah, shout out to Brazen Lono Wong, our leading receiver at halftime.
Was he really?
Yes.
That's incredible.
32 yards receiving. I think someone else had 28.
That is incredible. That is incredible. I mean, and then you start thinking, like, I mean, that call could have gone so horribly wrong, just like in the Big 12 championship game. It could have been disastrous. I mean, if they get the ball there, if it's incomplete, they get it on the 20, there's 2 minutes left to go. They probably score a touchdown, or I mean, maybe, and then you're down, 24-3 going into halftime instead of 17-3. So there were calls that were just, I mean, incredible. I describe it as it was literally every emotion that I've ever felt in one day. That's basically sums up the Peach Bowl for me.
Well, yeah, and then you almost got in a bar fight after. So
I didn't get in a bar fight. No, actually, I broke one up. That was interesting. There was one that was starting at a very prominent bar there in. It was a heated discussion. Just don't tell me we're lucky to be here. Get out of here with that stuff. Like, just please. Just anyway. There were elements of that night that will remain, and who I was with, and it was fun. It was a good night. It was funny. I mean, we were all grieving together, and just sort of, we just wanted the Texas fans to go away.
Yeah, well, I would love another shot at them eventually, and it was very fun to watch people in my life root for Ohio State, because that's something I've never seen ever, is ASU fans rooting for Ohio State.
Ever.
But
And
yeah, like
was,
they did not, and there's this like conventional wisdom that you want to be the team that lost to the team. If you're gonna lose, you want to be the team that lost to the team that wins everything. And it was near unanimous of like, no, screw these guys.
yeah, screw it. I don't care. Who
Here.
cares? I mean, when Kyle Murphy is rooting for Ohio State, there is reason to root for Ohio State. I mean, when what was it, the whatever and Scoop, seeing the Texas fans, yeah, there's a little Schadenfreude there when seeing their hands in their heads during the Ohio State Texas game, and when that was like the kind of nail in the coffin of that game. That was my comeback to the guy who said we're lucky to be here. I may have said you're going to get boat raced by Ohio State, and that set them off.
The literal irony, and I guess we'll end with this, was that Texas was just lucky to be there.
They were just lucky to be there. They couldn't. Yeah,
because they dropped the game-winning or the game-tying touchdown pass on 4th and 13.
It's the fact that we're in agreement. I was like, am I just seeing this ball hit the ground, and should that not be called back, and why was this not reviewed? And it's just it is what it is. And you know what though, I think if you take any silver lining from it, you take out of it that we were on the national stage. We gained a lot of fans. People felt sorry for us, so that's going to give us a little bit of credit in the bank. They're going to feel that we were hard done by in that game, and I got that from people from all over the country that don't have any skin in this game, and so we got that. And the other thing is that if we did win that game, we would have been really beat up going in to that Ohio State game.
I heard from somebody who would definitely know that it was like 5 days out from Ohio State, Texas. Cam Scatterby was having a hard time getting up out of chairs.
We would have been so beat up for that game. I mean, we were like half our receiving core is gone. I mean, because there was just injuries at the end of that game. But the fact that we went toe to toe with
Guillory was
Texas,
in a boot.
Guillory's in a boot. Stovall, yeah, he's got to be under concussion protocol if nothing else. Obviously Jordan Tyson now, and we did all that without our number one receiver, like who had, as you would like to say, you were uncomfortable with how many receiving yards.
Jordan we came Tyson back had. In that second half with like Malik McLean and Troy O'Meary as our number one and number two receiver.
Which credit to those guys, man. Credit to those guys for stepping up.
Yeah, they had like 9 combined catches on the season, and they're helping us almost win the Peach Bowl. It's a special, awesome team, and so many different players had opportunities to contribute. And then afterward, if you continued to pay attention to this Arizona State team, every press conference was like, I love these people. I love this school. I can't wait to come back. I can't wait to try again. Arizona State is it. And that's just covering college football on a grand scale with George Reister for the Pac-12, and then now, and you cover the Pac-12, and you know what? A lot of guys in the Pac-12 did talk like that, but not a lot of guys nationally do.
Yeah,
not a lot of guys nationally match the energy of the fan base, even before it was transactional.
Yeah,
with NIL. And so that stood out to me, was that players out there, and testimony is powerful, and they're just out there giving these testimonials of like, I can't wait to come back and play for this man and play alongside these men and play for this university. I love the fans and the opportunities that it gave me, and just knowing that they're making less than they could elsewhere.
For sure. Yeah, and then they're playing, and again, that goes to Kenny and the coaching staff and the athletic department. They're finding guys who want to be there for all the right reasons.
Yeah,
and it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing to see it work, because it's a one thing to try to do that, and then you end up you know, you end up with a 4 or 5 win season and it's like, hey, but we all like each other, you know, it's great. But when it actually pays off and these guys really do care about each other and you do something special like they did, and what they did this year was unquestionably special. It's just awesome to see in this modern climate of kind of like, what have you done for me lately? Me kind of thing. To see a team, and then it just gets me so excited. I just, next season cannot get here fast enough. I'm ready to go already.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but we've actually been recording now for 9 months, and the season kicks off here in about 1 minute. So
that's good. That's good. If anybody's still listening to this, you are a true Sun Devil.
And we're still not even like, we're still an hour short of what people do for Spaces every Wednesday.
Isn't that funny? Like, it's just, it's unbelievable. But again, if you're still listening to this, clearly you have nothing better else to do, and or you're just a diehard Sun Devil, and God bless you if you are. And thanks to you, Ralph, for everything that you do. We're super lucky to have you.
No, man. Thanks to you for hanging out with me here. And I didn't know how I was going to come back on here by myself and talk about what I experienced. And like, I just relive that stuff on my own. I couldn't figure out how to do it. And so, you know, you volunteer, you know, I didn't have to beg, you know.
I was dying to get on the Spaces. I just wanted, I needed to unpack this, you know.
I don't think we unpacked. I think we opened the box.
Yeah, I think we could do a 5-part series on this. Like, you know, we just go back and keep going over and over and everything else that happened. But again, I just want to again express my love for not only you and the things that you do, but for ASU, the program, and those guys. They did something special this year, and it's just awesome. So awesome and so much fun, and they created so many memories for me and so many other fans. And I mean, just well done. And the way they carried themselves all season, the way they carried themselves last season, man. I mean, like, credit to those guys, because that's not easy to do. It's not easy to do. And thanks to guys like Doug Tamaro and Jeremy and all those guys and Connor and like all the SID people and all the people that make all the wheels turn behind the scenes, because it takes a village, people. It takes a lot of people that you don't see, you know, out front and center, doing the things that they do.
Grizzled old DJ Foster calling kids down out of the
yelling at kids to get in the damn bus.
Yeah.
And the damn bus already. What are you doing? Come on, let's go. It's incredible. It's incredible. Oh. What a season. What a season.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I don't even know how to end this, but we end Spaces the same way every single time.
Gratitude, brother. Gratitude.
And that's really what it's about, man. Hey, Gus, we're lucky to be here right now.
We're lucky to be here.
That's a good way to
I didn't realize how right he was. We're just lucky to be here. That's true.
It's a truth of the universe, but we earned our spot for sure.
We showed people what we meant, and like I was saying that night afterwards, don't worry, we'll be back.
All right. Love you, buddy. Go Devils.
Love you, brother. Ciao.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Taxes was waiting around for your taxes to be done, which led to worrying about not getting any money back. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes in a day to get you up to $4,000 fast with a refund advance loan. Now this is Taxes. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Expert filing only available with TurboTax Live Full Service. Refund advance has $0 loan fees and 0% APR. Refund advance loans may be issued by First Century Bank, N.A. or WebBank. Terms apply. Subject to approval.